So first of all, to everybody who's logged in, I really hope you and your families are safe in this, time of crisis. I hope your children are taking it okay. It's not an easy time, clearly, with them being at home since March. We have to understand that there's a lot of anxiety which has set into these children, whatever be the age, maybe not the babies who are already used to being at home, but, toddlers who are going to preschools, your school going children, even the primary, middle school children. It's a huge change in their lifestyle. No friends, no classes, no parks, no birthday parties, no going out and meeting anybody. And this is summer vacation time, right? So our children were used to traveling a little bit wherever it was. So all of this is, definitely a cause of concern to all of us. And so we have a lot of parents joining in. Hi, Jayashri. Hi, Padmaja. So would love to hear where you're from and what you do. So before I give you my formal introduction, my name is Dr. Pallavi Rao Chaturvedi, and I do several things, but one of them is I run my own YouTube channel called Get Set Parent with Pallavi. You can check it out and you can subscribe. I post dozens and dozens of videos which will help you in your journey of parenting. And, we can always interact post this as well. A big thank you to First Cry, IntelliKids for inviting me here on this, lovely afternoon session with the lovely parents of the First Cry family. So I'm very, very happy to be here. I think in about 3 minutes we can start. So like I was saying, I hope all of you are doing great. And, before we get into anything, I just want to tell you that we are all having such a hard time with this COVID-19 lockdown. We are not able to function in the way we used to. We are not able to go to work, in the same way. We are not able to socialize. And it is taking its toll on us. But we as adults have regulation on our emotions, right? We are able to control, we are able to regulate, and we're able to try and figure out how to kind of make the best of this situation and, not have meltdowns. Though I'm sure we all have the blues and we all feel gloomy, at different parts of the day. But, we need to spare a thought for our little ones. It's not easy for them at all. When they want to watch too much TV, we say no, too much screen time. When they want to go out and meet their friends, we say no going out. When they want to, go into the city, they can't do anything that they like. So first of all, before any of these amazing learning sessions that all of you are attending every day, on whichever platform, you're reading up so much because, you are all concerned parents. You really want to give the best to your children. First of all, the most important thing I want to say is treat your children with a lot of empathy and sympathy. Give them that leeway, give them that little bit of extra, space, because, they're not getting the physical space, they're not getting that mental space. They look upon you. You as their parents now have become their sole source of of solace, of entertainment, of guidance. You are their teacher, you are their entertainer, you are everything to them right now. So, decide on what you want to do. Try and make things a win-win situation. They get what they want, you get what you want, but be a little flexible. Because, if we become very rigid at this point, one of the things, dear parents, I need everybody here to remember is that, we have to remember our children got into the lockdown way before us. From the mid of March, they've been at home, and our children are going to continue being in this lockdown much after we are allowed to go out, right? So they're going to be at home for a couple of months, if not several months. the education community thinks that it will be almost September or October before the younger children actually step into school. So it's a very, very long period for them to be at home. They've never done this before. So treat them with a lot of love and a lot of patience, because it's not easy. So it's 4:30 and we'll start now. A warm welcome to everybody. So I'll quickly introduce myself before getting into the topic for the day. My name is Dr. Pallavi Rao Chaturvedi. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm an educationist. I run a chain of preschools as well. But today, I'm not here as an educationist. I'm not here looking at providing knowledge to you on what, as a teacher or somebody standing in front of 30 or 40 children in the classroom, can achieve. I'm here as a parenting coach. I'm here as a parenting mentor. And I'm here to kind of talk to you on you as a parent. How do you handle this lockdown as far as making sure that they don't lose touch with their learning is concerned? And this will be the primary topic that I talk about. And of course, whenever you have a question, feel free to message your question in the comment boxes, and I have some questions coming to me on the phone and some of them on the screen, so I will address your questions as well. All right. So that's a little bit of introduction about me. I run a parenting YouTube channel called Get Set Parent with Pallavi. I routinely shoot a variety of videos on emotional development, learning at home, technology related issues. So you can visit the YouTube channel. That's my primary source of content creation. Of course, you can follow me on Instagram and on the Get Set Parent Facebook page as well. Right. So again, a very warm welcome to our hundreds of people who have logged in from various parts of the country. And first of all, I want to congratulate all of you, because I believe you are really motivated parents. For you to have made this effort to come, on a hot afternoon and log in and listen to what experts have to say, you are already a step in the right direction, and you're already making the right decisions and moves for your children. So that's very, very heartening. And, in these times of very difficult parenting, I think all parents deserve a huge clap and a pat on the back, right? So dear parents, today I'm going to be talking to you about what we call active learning techniques. So you might be wondering, what is this active learning techniques? And a lot of our children parents here have young children who are in the age groups of, maybe under 7 or under 8. So you're like, learning, we've heard, what is active learning? So let me tell you, not just during the lockdown and not just when your children are young, throughout your lives, if you indulge in active learning practices, you will see that your children end up doing much better in their preschools, in their schools, and grow up to be adults which, who are thinking, reasoning adults. The best part about this entire active learning techniques, which I'm going to share with you today, I'm going to share with you a lot of tricks and a lot of ways in which you can build active learning into every single thing that you do to make the time that you spend with your child very, very meaningful. Okay. So what do we mean by active learning as opposed to passive learning? Okay. So active learning is really when children are thinking about what is being told to them, children are reasoning, children are analyzing, children are experiencing, children are doing, and they get an overall 360-degree view of what the activity is, okay? As opposed to an activity or a set of instructions that the parent is giving the child and the child is just listening. Pure listening with no interaction is called passive learning, and this is the least effective form of learning. What we want to try to do is get your children into a frame of mind where when you tell them, look at the bird that is flying, they should be asking you questions. How is the bird flying? Why is the bird flying? Why can't I fly? Why can't the car fly? That, in my opinion, is a child who is able to think, who is able to process, who is able to reason. So one of the most important skills of parenting, which I want to teach all of you today, is allowing your children to explore, to experiment, and to question. Because a questioning child is one that, turns into the most creative child later. Okay? So one of the most important things you need to understand, if this is your learning pyramid, okay? You have a kind of triangle, you have a pyramid. What you call remembering is the most low order skills, low order thinking skills that we call. All right. So you have remembering or what you call rote learning or by hearting. It's not a bad thing, but that's the most low order skill. Then you come to understanding, right? Then you come to application, how you apply what you have kind of heard and you have kind of understood. And then you move to higher order thinking skills, which are basically analytical skills, and finally creation, right? So the Indian education system is often criticized because, they say we are only about, ratification or rote learning, and there's so few innovators or original innovations or thoughts coming out. Maybe all of us as parents and educators have a chance and have a shot at making sure at least this generation of learners is exposed to active learning techniques. All right. So this is one of the things that I definitely wanted to tell you. Now, when you talk about active learning, you have various things, everything that you do in your day. For example, reading stories can be active, right? You can use active reading techniques. You can use active imagination techniques. You can use active listening. You can use whole body or active body, learning techniques. So everything can be active where the interaction levels are very, very high. And you just, you don't tell your child, now you listen, this is what you're going to do, and you have to do it. And you don't even want to listen to the child. Now that is going into a mode where you have closed your ears to listening to the child. You're not empathizing with what the child is wanting to think, or you're moving too fast at your pace and you're not allowing the child to lead the activities. So one of the most important things in active learning is allow the child to lead, allow the child to feel that he has a say in what is going on. Okay. Now, one of the most important things is during the lockdown, what you don't want is that your child reaches school 4 or 5 months later and the child and the teacher both feel that the child has forgotten everything that has been taught. So today I'm going to show you a lot of techniques. And the first thing I'm going to start with, so a lot of questions which I see coming in. So while I speak, feel free to drop your questions so I know where there is an issue in understanding and I can further clarify. The first thing I'm going to teach you all today is called active reading. And I'm going to actually show you how to do active reading with your child. I'm going to demonstrate one page and you can try it with your children. Now this works whether your child is 1 year old, 5 years old, 8 years old, 10 years old, or even later. Okay. One of the most important things to know, so this is a book, this is one of my favorite books by Julia Donaldson. So in fact, you all are attending many storytelling sessions. So try and practice active reading techniques like the one I'm going to tell you. So I'm going to read out one page and show you the difference between normal storytelling and active reading storytelling. Okay, what we call active reading. Okay, so I'm going to start. Sugar Lump was a rocking horse. He belonged to a girl and a boy. To and fro, they rode on their favorite toy. Here's the children's bedroom, is where I want to be. Happily rocking to and fro. This is the life for me. Okay. So I'm going to, show you. Imagine there was a child in front of you. Oh, wow. Look at this. Look at this beautiful bedroom. Can you tell me what all you can see here? So the child will name. So one of the first things is when you read, point to the words. So you don't want to read to your child, you want to read with your child. So you want this to be a very, very interactive session. It is not reading to, but it's reading with. So Sugar Lamp was a rocking horse. The first advantage of pointing to the words while you read is that children get an understanding, and you will be surprised within a few months your child will be able to recognize the words. This is how sight words will actually very beautifully and very naturally come into your child. So when you show the child the picture, so I hope you can see the picture, you talk about, wow, look at this beautiful bedroom. It has a rocking horse. And is this you? Is this your sister? Try and relate to real life experiences. For example, what do you see in the photo frame? Is this a merry-go-round? Can you remember when we went on a merry-go-round last? You remember we went to a fair? What all did we eat at the fair? Who else was there at the fair? So what you're actually trying to do is you're trying to integrate a story into the child's personal learning experiences and life experiences. All of these then help in retaining long-term memory, which is very important to your child. This is a beautiful page to also show. Look at this. You have small, these toys are small. These toys are big. Can you see that? And can you tell me what colors you see in this? So what this entire technique actually does is it involves the child in making the child feel that he or she is participating in the entire exercise. So I have a video on Get Set Parent with Pallavi on my YouTube channel on how to read and what is the first library of books to set up for your toddlers. So definitely go and visit that. So this is a small example. I would then finish. So normally if a book takes 10 minutes to read, I take about 25 minutes to read the book because we have gone so deep into the whole story. So active learning is getting deep versus passive learning, which is being very superficial. So when we get into the story, when we get into feelings, so this is about a unicorn, a horse who wants to be something else. So we talk about our feelings. How did you feel when you were reading the story? Did it make you feel like you wanted to, maybe be a bird flying in the sky? Do you want to be something else? So when you discuss feelings, when you discuss colors, when you point at the words, allow the child to touch and feel, all of these then become active reading. It becomes a sensorial learning experience. It becomes a very linguistically enriching experience. And these are the exact things that go into active reading techniques. Okay. At the end of the book, I would actually close the book and reflect on the book. Right? So allow your child to internalize and express his or her feelings. One of the most important things when we talk about active learning is pause. Okay? I'm going to tell you a secret here, which many of you might not know. What is the attention span of a child? Because those attention spans are when the child is fully engrossed, and then you need to give a pause or you need to give a break. Active learning is when you frequently give pauses as per the age of the child. So typically, the age of your child into on an average 4 minutes is the attention span a child can have. So if your child is 4 years old, between 12 and 16 minutes is how much your child can focus on an activity, right? So when I hear parents telling me, so I do a live session on Get Set Parent on my Facebook page every Friday at 6 o'clock. And I have parents so worried and say, my 3-year-old is not writing a whole page of A's or B's or C's for even 30 minutes. So when your child is 3, your child is supposed to have how many minutes of attention span? Not more than 3 into 4, 12 minutes. Some children might have 9 to 10. Some children might have 15 to 16 minutes. But on an average, for you to plan an activity with your child, please bear in mind this. If you have a child who's 8 years old, a 25 to 30-minute activity is as much as the child will be able to do effectively. After that, the effectiveness goes down. All right. So this is something that I definitely want all of you to remember. One of the most important things right now during a COVID lockdown is you, my dear parents, are playing multiple roles. You are also a teacher. You're also the creator of multiple activities. You're also the extracurricular facilitator. So this role of us facilitating several activities for our children needs us to be more informed about what we can do. So please don't plan 1 hour long activities, which start very well, and then it should not, an activity which ends in crying, shouting, tantrums is an activity which has not been planned properly. Your intentions might have been great, but the execution might have started great, but it might have gone down. Short bursts of high intensity activity is what you want to do. So I spoke about active reading techniques. You can have, those of you who have missed this, you can go and have a detailed look at about how you read to your children and how to set up your toddler's library on my YouTube channel, Get Set Parent with Pallavi. The second thing I want to talk to you about is whole body experiential learning. This is a massive part about, part of active learning, because we need to understand, and I want all of you to understand, that what is a fundamental difference between an adult and a child, right? We as adults are able to sit still. I am able to sit, in fact, that is the problem, right? All of us, once we sit at our desks working, we can go on for 5 to 6 hours and not even get up. A child, on the other hand, has a problem sitting still. So if you create activities where your child has to sit still for long periods of time, it brings down the attention and the interest of the activity. So the second most important thing I want to teach all of you or tell all of you today is try and mix up physical activity with learning. For example, if your child is learning how to say the numbers from 1 to 10, what I would actually do is paste stickers on different steps if you have a staircase, or place it on the floor and get the child to jump. Why were hopscotch so much fun when we were growing up, right? Because there was an inherent, we never thought about it as learning, but there was learning. When you mix up a physical activity with a memory-based activity, the retention becomes very, very strong. So if your child is saying the multiplication tables or doing skip counting 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 while skipping, or if you ask the child to do opposites, on opposite legs. So suppose, you say day, night, sharp, blunt. While hopping on alternate legs, research has proved that physical activity, when mixed with a learning or a memory-based activity, has better results. So I would actually advise you to mix up activities, make it very, very physical, jumping, hopping, walking on a balance beam, maybe throwing the ball when, while singing nursery rhymes. So try and do this. Another thing that I would actually suggest is physically doing different activities in different rooms. This also helps in building memory in a very, very fantastic kind of way. For example, if your child reads stories on the bed, some days read a different story in a completely new location. It could be sitting near the small puja area of your house, for example. Or if, and this is especially true for the lockdown times, children are so fed up of sitting at home, try and circulate the living spaces that you have. So if you think your child has to sit at the study table and do activities every day, it can get very monotonous. So maybe you do, you do a few writing pages in the kitchen for a change, or you do something in a balcony, or so what this does is a child will be able to recollect. So tomorrow when you tell the child, you remember we did that page when we were sitting by the window that day, the child will be able to remember. So physical activity, physical spaces, even you bringing in sensorial aids or physical equipment into your activities can be a lot of fun. For example, if I do something really weird, if I wear a cap and I sit with my child and say, you know what, today I'm going to, we're going to do something fun. We're going to do addition, for example. What makes it very memorable for your child is the fact that you wore a cap, the fact that it is different, the fact that it is unexpected. This is a part of building memory, which is called active learning. Okay. So we've spoken about, so one of the other things which, all of you can do, especially when it comes to math. Math has a lot of understanding and it has a lot of rote learning, right? Some things you just have to remember. It just makes it easy for children if they remember certain things. So on my YouTube channel, I have an episode on how to introduce math to toddlers. So a lot of the problem is in the way that we learned math growing up. A lot of us hated it, right? I'm sure, if you drop me a few comments on how many people, hated math growing up, you'll be surprised. A lot of parents, grown-ups today had traumatic experiences. So one of the YouTube videos I did was on how to do math in the kitchen. How do you do it with leaves and stones? How do you do it with flowers? How do you do it with, random toys and vessels in your kitchen? Because math is everywhere. It doesn't have to be. One of the most important things, parents, I want to tell you is if everything is about a pen and a paper, it is going to get boring. When things get boring, your child starts shutting down and he or she goes into something called reactive learning. When you have reactive learning, it disrupts efficient learning. So a non-stress-free environment, a fun environment using a lot of tools. When I say tools, I understand we're in a lockdown. I'm not asking you to get Montessori aids from somewhere. I'm not telling you to get, the most expensive equipment. Things in your kitchen are fantastic tools of learning. Things in your bedroom are fantastic tools of learning. For example, if I were to teach patterns to children, right? Patterns, this is also a great way to reduce screen time. Today, what I find is parents are doing everything on the screen. Just because there's an app available for tracing, just because there's an app available for coloring, just because there's an app for addition, you don't have to do it on the app. All of this is increasing your screen time. What I would actually recommend is try and take it into physical things. So, for example, one of the fundamental building blocks of of math is pattern formation. So what you could do is, suppose you put things from your kitchen. You put a rajma, a chana, and maybe a spoon, and you tell your child to repeat these patterns. Mix up all of these things. Tell your child to put it into different bowls. These are the basics that a toddler can do at home. You don't need the screen for everything. You don't need expensive learning equipment for everything. Do have a look at that episode on how to make math fun for a toddler, how to introduce. I have actually spoken about 10 innovative ways. So whether it is spatial awareness, whether it is rote learning, pattern formation, weights and measures, all of these can be done with things at home. And that's exactly what you need as parents right now in a lockdown situation. How do you convert your home into a brilliant place of learning for your child? Okay. So just to recap, so far we've spoken about active reading techniques. We've spoken about whole body involvement in learning, mixing up physical places and jumping while learning. We have spoken about how to make your home a conducive place for active learning for the child. What you have to remember that when a child is a piece of sponge. Every new experience that you put into the child the child will actually absorb. And that becomes, the biggest strength of this age. 0 to 10 is a very, very critical, in fact, 0 to 8 is a very, very critical part of their lifetimes. And that sets the foundation of the entire learning years later. So when you catch your 15-year-old child and you say, why is your math weak? Or why don't you have focus? It's because some things in the early childhood were not probably done right. So our parents actually brought us up with a very instinct or gut level understanding, which is great. But we should remember that we also had far less distractions. We didn't go out that much probably. There were no malls. There was no screen time. We didn't have apps and tabs and screens and TVs around us. So a lot of what I'm talking to about, we did very naturally. Today, we as parents have to put that extra effort to be able to do those activities, right? So it's okay. Like I always tell parents, don't stress yourselves. Do a little bit. And what's more important is that you are practicing informed parenting. You're arming yourself with a lot of information and you're moving slowly towards introducing those aspects into the lives of your child, all right? I'll talk about another area and then maybe we can start taking questions. In the meantime, I would request parents to start, on whichever platform you're watching, please do start putting down your questions. I'm going to talk about something called active recall. Okay, what is recall? Recall is really what we call loosely memory, right? When you try to remember what happened. We all know the importance of great memory for children. Children who have great memory are able to perform better in school, in grades, they're picked for the stage performances, all of these. But memory doesn't happen just like that. A lot of people actually believe that memory is an inborn trait and what you have is what you have. So parents, here's the good news. Memory gets better with practice. Just like everything else I have told you today, none of what I have told you today is a God's gift. It is honing, what we call nature and nurture. This is all nurture. The better we are able to nurture, the better the outcomes that we want out of our children can possibly be. So memory actually resides in, the hippocampus, you have your prefrontal cortex, you have the cerebellum. So you have 4 parts of the brain in which the memory resides. And the more you exercise these parts of the body. So we all know that exercise for the body is great. Exercise for the brain is also great. So all of these things that I've been telling you are all exercises for the brain. So when you exercise memory, right, your active recall also improves greatly. I'm just going to check if there are questions so far. So this is also something which is very, very important. You have long-term memory, short-term memory. Memory is a whole session in itself. Maybe we can do it another day. But the important thing to do is how do you hone these things? So there are a variety of memory games which are available. We used to play them, as kids. There are a variety of card-based memory games where you open cards and, you do matching. There are a variety of, memory-based games that are available. A basic Google search and you'll find it. So the more you play these games with your child, everything that you do with your child is not about, am I matching the curriculum? Obviously, if your child is 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, it's not so much about the curriculum. But, it's not all about literacy. Does my child know ABCD? Is my child writing perfectly? Does my child know spellings? You need the mind to be agile and you need to do all of these exercises for the brain as well. Okay. So a lot of charts in the house, maybe you and your child, it can be a beautiful interactive activity where you and your child can draw, animals, fruits, even alphabets, relate alphabets to, certain objects that your child likes. So, flashcards, mnemonics, charts, all of these help, in building memory. For a child, repetition is very important. The more you repeat a concept, the better it sticks in the mind. So if you think, and I have experienced it personally, so just to share with you, I have two children. My daughter is 7 years old and my son is 3 years old. If you think that I have taught my child a certain concept and my job is done, it's not going to work. You need to repeat it till it gets into the long-term memory. So if you say that, during the beginning of the lockdown, I taught my child all the numbers, and you think that when your child reaches your school in September, your child will remember everything, I'm really sorry to inform you, you are mistaken. Unless you keep repeating, right? So a little bit of science for you, how are nerve connections formed? So every time you introduce a new concept, there's a new connection between the neurons, all right? So I hope my session's not getting very heavy. I know I've introduced a lot of concepts, so maybe you can watch it again slowly to kind of absorb, but I did want to make sure that you have enough points to last through the lockdown with your children. When you introduce a concept, just think of it like you have two neurons and there's a line which has been introduced. The more you repeat that activity, the more that connection gets strengthened, all right? So why is it that, so this is true for language, this is true for sports, this is true for writing, this is true for anything. Why is it that small children are able to recite some prayers and some, mantras? And I heard a lot of parents say, look, my child is able to say it. Why is that? Because you run it repetitively every night. Why does a child know what is by heart? Because it is repetitive. So similarly, even a learning-based concept, once you introduce it, please keep on doing it till you are 100% satisfied that it has gone into the long-term memory. Today, as an adult, those who know how to drive will never forget drive. You will never forget how to swim because it has gone into your long-term memory. But a language, for example, right? So language is one of those things that if you don't practice it, so I did a live session on linguistic development for children, and for example, a lot of us post our 12th maybe learned a German or a French, when we had 2 months break. Can you speak it today without practice? No. A lot of us fumbling with our mother tongues today, or a lot of parents and children have a problem with English today. Why is that? Because there is not enough practice. So everything that is practiced repeatedly, under the age of 10, if there's one mantra you need to take home, repeat, 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 right? That's the comfort the child gets. Why is it that when you read a story or when you sing a song, your child wants the same thing? The child will say, Mama, please read the same story again. Please sing the same song again. Because the child is predisposed to wanting that again. And that's how children like it. They like it repeatedly, and it works best for brain development as well. So when we came to memory, I spoke about memory-based games, mnemonics and charts, repetition. And one of the tricks that I definitely want to share with you is ask your child to become the teacher, right? So this is something that we all of us grew up. I don't think there's any child who grew up without playing teacher. Unfortunately, today, for a lot of children, that's a forgotten game. But when the child becomes the teacher, that is one of the best forms of imprinting the concept and making sure it goes into the long-term memory. So if your child has a younger sibling, I routinely, it's a rule for my 7-year-old to teach her 3-year-old brother something. Anything, teach him something. The more she teaches, the more the concept gets ingrained. And also practice this with your younger children. right? If you have a toddler at home, I tell my younger one, Mama doesn't know, can you please teach me? He feels so proud that Mama doesn't know something and I can teach. So when a child teaches, they are reaching into parts of their mind to explain a concept to you. They are trying to formulate the strings of words. It is helping them in vocabulary. It is helping them in formulating their thoughts. They're reaching the specific parts of the mind to do with that particular aspects that you want them to teach. So all of these, so teaching is one of the great trick to build memory for your child. So broadly, active learning is anything and everything where the child is engaged. So next time you plan an activity for your child, try and ask yourself the question, is it me going to be talking and the child doing? In which case, not a good activity. If the child is going to be doing, if the child has an opportunity to ask you questions, if it is experiential in nature, if it has touch and feel, if it can be, one of the things which is great for older children, even 6 to 7-year-old children, is have a debate with them, because that turns on the reasoning and logical parts of the mind, right? It could be a simple thing. Are too many chocolates good for you and bad for you? So you'll be surprised at the number of reasons your children come up with, right? To convince you whether it is good for you or bad for you. And I think today children are so smart. They have so much exposure. They are really able to reason and give you, fantastic reasons why you should allow them to do a variety of things. So I think I'm going to, maybe stop here for a while and start taking questions. I can take your questions on what we've discussed today, or if you have generic questions as well, I would love to address those questions. A lot of what I have shared with you today, I have done demonstrations on my videos that I have shot with a lot of props. On Get Set Parent with Pallavi, you can go and have a look and subscribe. I release about 2 videos a week on various topics. So now I'm going to, start taking questions. So let's, maybe you can start typing your questions. I have Saha Dimple. Hi, Saha. My little one is really good with drawing and sketching. How can I develop his skill? So Saha, I don't know how old your child is, but like I said, fantastic that your child knows what he likes. Give him a variety of resources to explore. One of the things I want to talk about when it comes to drawing and sketching is a great artist. Original art is created from the mind. So let us not be the influencers of what their art could possibly be, right? If you tell them scenery is a house with a sloping roof and the river flowing and 4 mountains and the sun rising, you have created a stereotype, which is a big no-no, which is actually, going to be harmful for any creative juice that the mind is trying to create for the child. So please don't influence art. One of the tricks when your children draw something is you don't ask them. I'm not sure if I'm disconnected. The video is not playing. I'm just going to wait for a second. Can you hear me? Can some of you quickly type and tell me if you are able to hear me? The video has gone, but are you able to hear me? Okay, great. Nisha and Ravikant say they're able to hear me. If you're able to hear me, please write yes, and I'll continue speaking. So one of the things is when your child draws something, Please don't quickly say. So suppose your child has drawn something and you say, oh wow, that's such a beautiful cow. And your child will be like, no, mama, that's not a cow, that is actually the sun, right? So allow your child to describe what he has drawn, and you please don't pass judgments on what you thought the drawing was. So that's one of the things, that let us not put our adult stereotypes into a possible original creation of a child. Allow your child to draw, allow your child, and ask for a story. When your child draws something, you can ask them, so what is this? What all have you drawn in this? What's happening here? And you will be amazed to hear a fantastic story coming out of that drawing. Encourage your child, allow them to explore with watercolors, with crayons, and encourage. And no matter what the drawing is, our job as parents is to encourage them and not give our 5 views on how, the child is not looking for critical acclaim. Our job is not to criticize. We appreciate, and then maybe at a different point, teach them some new techniques that can be applied. But when the child shows you a drawing, don't quickly, say, oh, this is not right, but you could have done this better. Appreciate the drawing. Let it be what it was. At another point, 15, 20 minutes down, or the next day, say, come, let me teach you a few new techniques. Never link your judgment to the immediate drawing that your child has made. All right? So I hope I've answered your question on that. Sirisha Karthik has a question. Her daughter is 3.5, but she has good memory, but she never wants to do activities. She shows interest in coloring and painting. Can you suggest how to make her do activities? Sirisha, you will have to actually see, a child at 3.5 is usually interested in everything. Maybe you have introduced the activity when the child was not in a mood, or you have given the child a very difficult activity which was beyond beyond the capability of that child. When you give a 3.5-year-old child maybe an activity which is meant for a 5-year-old child, they might not grasp it, and you push it in front of them 5 times, they will reject it. So you need to check, are your activities age appropriate? Are your activities visually stimulating and exciting for the child to do? And are you introducing a new activity at the right time? When your child is cranky, wants to go to sleep, please don't open a whole new concept and say, now I want to teach. No. You want to introduce a new concept when the child is, well rested, when the child is happy, when the child is not hungry, and you will be surprised. The child will say, you know what, teach me more. So check on all of these and encourage the child to do what activity that you want. Another thing is overstimulation. So suppose you have brought 10 activities in front of the child. Today a lot of parents are guilty of that. We have excess. There's too much. Right? So the child is not able to focus. You bring 10 activities and say, okay, so the child is confused, little bit of this, little bit of that, throw everything and leave. So that is one thing I would caution you. So please do have a look at that. 4.5-year-old child loves coloring. When I ask her to do alphabets and numbers, she runs away. So Sulagna, how about you try and link painting to alphabets and numbers. So one of the techniques, again, which is great fun, which I have done with, my children, is take a huge plate and put a lot of shaving foam in it and a few drops of food color or paint, and ask her to, make her trace different alphabets in the shaving foam. It is sensory, it is a lot of fun, and you've got your alphabet practice going on. I think the problem with writing, is that it becomes very monotonous. When you say, come with your paper and your pencil and I'm going to start writing, it becomes extremely monotonous for the child. So try and figure out how to mix up. So maybe, fill a small area with sand and ask your child to draw in the sand. Your child is very young, so it's fine. Ask your child to, this is perfect. All kinds of tracing activities, whether it's in foam, whether it's in rice, whether it is in sand, work beautifully for improving the finger muscle dexterity and the fine motor skills of your child. So go ahead and try this as well. I have a question from Nisha. She has a 9-year-old who's reluctant to listen to what parents ask her to do. How to make her understand. So Nisha, a 9-year-old has a lot going on in her mind. So, we have to respect and we have to change our parenting styles as our children grow up as well. So when your child was 3, 4, even 5, you were everything to the child, and everything you said was the only source of information or exploration for your child. But when a child has friends, when your child is 9 years old, she has a mind of her own. So you will need to start treating her like an adult. So children who have 9, 10, 11, 12, and so on, these are children approaching their preteens. Respect what they say. If your child feels that everything she wants, you are rejecting, if all the control is with the parents, the child is going to get frustrated. All right. So this is not a 4-year-old child who is okay taking your control. You will have to kind of negotiate and figure out what is it that are non-negotiable for the child, that you want the 9-year-old or the 9 to 12-year-old, that look, these are the things you simply have to do, and these are the things which you can decide. For example, you have to do half an hour of reading a day. You have to do your 1 hour of studying a day, for example. But some things are, or you have to keep your room clean and clean up the room. So you decide what are the non-negotiable things. But some things, if the child feels that I also have some control, the child will not feel like they are in a trap. They will not feel like you are instructing them, and it will give them a sense of responsibility. So allow them to choose and make some decisions on their own for a few things, and you will be surprised that this sharing of control of the child's life and you not tying up everything in terms of what the child wants to do will actually make her respect you even more and give her a sense of accomplishment. Do try this. Okay, so I have some questions here as well. So something about being bored and not in the mood and wanting to watch cartoons all the time. I think this is a question that a lot of parents might actually have, that when you say video games or watching movies versus doing something offline and doing an activity, today's generation of children are programmed to think that these activities, the screen activities, are a lot of fun. So I think the precedence which has been set can be corrected if it has gone wrong. One of the things is, if a child thinks that screen time is their right, they can get up in the morning and switch on the TV for breakfast, you have a problem on your hands. Parents have to make it very clear that screen time is a privilege and not a right. Okay? When the child has finished so-and-so activities, when the child has finished the chores that you want them to do, that is when they earn the privilege to watch TV. If you make this a habit from the age of 1, under the age of 2, you should not be giving them any screen time. Do watch my video on managing screen time transitions on the YouTube channel. I post these also just for everybody here. You can follow me on Instagram, pallavi.rao.chaturvedi, or on my Facebook page, Pallavi Rao, Get Set Parent with Pallavi. You can subscribe to my YouTube channel, Get Set Parent with Pallavi. I have done a detailed video on managing screen time. So please don't allow your child to think that it is his birthright that the second he gets up or, whenever he wants, he can turn off the TV. For a couple of days, you make sure that you do the right thing. It becomes a habit. Habit formation on screen time is very, very critical. And, if the child knows that there is so much fun outside of the TV, outside of the tab, your child will slowly start appreciating. But, the moment you cross that, place in life where you are giving the child 5 to 6 hours of screen time, it's such a problem at home, it's very difficult to retrace your steps. So those of you who have young children between the ages of 2 and 7, please get your rule of screen time right in the beginning. Then they will also know that this is a rule. They will not ask you. Why do children know that the moment they have to get up in the morning, they have to brush their teeth? Why do children know that before eating, they have to wash their hands? Why do children know that when they come out of the bathroom, they have to wear clothes? Because you have taught them. Have you taught them that so much screen time is bad? Have you taught them that more than 2 hours for children who are above 10 and 1 to 1.5 children between the ages of 5 and 10 is enough? Have you taught them that? If you have not taught them, how will they know, right? So please try and teach them these things, and just like all other habits that you have taught them, they know that eating vegetables is good. Just like that, screen time becomes another habit, right? Okay. Hello, ma'am, my kid is 3.2, doesn't like to listen to stories again and once. So this is everything about screen time that I've just spoken about. Charu, your child is very young, and if you get him used to so much screen time, you will be in trouble, and you will have to, children are being de-addicted for screen time. If you have a child watching more than 2 hours, it is a problem. Children who watch 5 to 6, 7 hours of TV are getting addicted to it. So I don't know. I mean, it is very difficult for sure. But please, your child is very small right now at 3. You can correct his habit. Sit down with the child. I know there are a lot of, a lot of this is also very difficult to do during a normal, during the lockdown, because otherwise the child was going to school, was going out. It is very difficult, I know, but try and involve. So for example, Charu, you are, why don't you take your child's help in the household chores? Children love to help in setting. A 3-year-old child will love to put the plates. A 3-year-old child will love to put glasses. A 3-year-old child can do pretend play and help you fold clothes. Involve the child in what you are doing and say, Mama needs your help, and you'll be surprised how proud they feel that they are helping you. Okay, so please think of creative ways and distract the child from the screen time. Just say electricity has gone. At 3 years, you can also tell the child that your Wi-Fi is down and things like that. Sirisha has a problem. One of your students is 9 and has a confusion in shapes and colors. Sirisha, sounds like there is a learning issue. You might want to contact the pediatrician and maybe an occupational therapist to try and figure out, because at 9, this problem should definitely not be there. Falguni, hi Falguni, she has a question. How to keep the child calm after being overwhelmed? Very good question. I think calm is something that we have to model. It's very difficult, but if we are calm, our children can also learn how to be calm, and they kind of model this behavior. One of the things is try and get some prayer time, some singing time, some spiritual time in. It could be half an hour before sleeping. So this is something that I normally practice at bedtime. After stories, we listen to some very calming music, and it could be Indian classical music, preferably instrumental music, or any kind of music that calms the child, slow and instrumental, and talk to the child, allow the child to express their feelings. Opening up is very important. Getting the child to open up, again, I have done a video on how to get your child to open up, and bedtime is one of the most important times of the day. The other thing is spending your child's physical energy is very important. Like I mentioned earlier as well, that children have a lot of physical energy, and if you don't exhaust that physical energy in the child is going to be frustrated. So you need to allow your child, if you have a small garden area, any kind of small outdoor place, try and get the child to do a lot of skipping, jumping, any kind of physical activity. Again, if you Google, there are tons of indoor physical yoga, put on some great music and dance with your child. When your child spends that physical energy which has been pent up, it is easier for them to calm down. Now, a child, just imagine the situation when a child has so much physical energy and you've told the child, come, let's do coloring. It's not going to work, because the child first has to spend that energy, and coloring is not allowing him that outlet. So try and spend that energy at the times of the day when it's right. Given the summer that we are in, which is it's a heat wave going on right now. Of course, children are inside, but you want to modulate physical energy and calming activities in such a way that once the energy is spent, bring them down to do the calmer activities. Okay, there's another question here that I have. So I think it's been an hour. I will maybe some final questions. My son is 4 years old and I want him to start studying. He used to during lockdown. How can I make him learn happily? So I think a happy learner is an engaged learner, is an active learner. So if the kind of activities are such that they are very monotonous, or they are not involving him, your child will not be happy. If you are doing numbers, give him, maybe you can print out worksheets which involve him thinking, thinking in the mind. Take your 4-year-old into the kitchen, ask him to, do various kinds of sorting, sequencing, pattern formation, weighing. Ask him to arrange all, your drawers with one drawer has, only the cutlery, one has the bowls and plates, one has the other serving spoons. Think of your own activities. All this is learning. If you think that learning is only with pen and paper, please bust that myth. It is a myth. Learning for a child is happening everywhere. In fact, learning through tools like this is far more efficient and far more impactful than doing everything on pen and paper. All right, so I think we'll take final 2 questions. Somebody here has asked me about paper cutting activities. So this is a great suggestion. In fact, those of you who have children between 1 and 4, this is the time to do a lot of pre-writing work with your children. So coloring and writing are fine for 3.5, 4-year-old children. But before that, you can do a lot of pre-writing skills, whether it is cutting with the scissors, whether it is tearing, whether it is kneading, your roti ka atta, whether it is, using a rolling pin and rolling out, rotis, whether it is making a long snake. All of these are excellent pre-writing skills. And, give your child safety scissors, please. Plastic scissors. Online deliveries have started everywhere. You can order, on FirstCry, on Amazon, you can order safety plastic scissors, which they can cut, give them a lot of paper to cut. The cutting activity is one of the most important pre-writing skills to start writing. So everything, all of these things happen parallelly. And I think I'll, wrap up with the final question. But one of the most important things that I want to convey to you, that studying and learning is not only about pen and paper. Studying and learning can happen through every medium. So explore the nooks of your house, use all the material creatively, and you have a beautiful playground in your house itself. I'll take a last question. From where can I start introducing learning activities? My daughter is 7 months old. Beautiful question, Alicia. Alicia, I would urge you to visit my YouTube channel. I have done a 4-part series on stimulating activities for infants. So there I have taught how to make sensory bins for, 1-year-old children, what to do with touch-based stimulation, visual stimulation, taste-based stimulation. So Alicia, have a look at my videos. They are meant for children between 0 and 1 year, exactly answering that. There's a whole lot, so I can't get into it right now, but have a look at that video and you will get a whole storehouse of information, right? So I'm just going to leave my contact here with you. Get Set Parent with Pallavi on YouTube and Facebook. That's where you can catch me, and on YouTube and on thing, and on Instagram you can catch me on pallavi.rao.chaturvedi. Yeah, so this is for Insta. I routinely post a lot of stuff. So it's been a pleasure answering all of your questions and talking to all of you. These messages are coming. It's from my ID, somebody called Sanjeev Sharma. It's the ID I'm using. Please, these are my credentials, and you can, subscribe to my YouTube channel and follow me on Facebook and on Insta. I think we've had a lovely session. It was a pleasure speaking to all of you today. And looking forward to reaching you all soon again. So thanks so much. And I think I'm just going to end the video here. And it was a pleasure. Thank you.